Hey everybody, Bandicoot Commando here, and welcome back to Bioshock 2. Last time, last time, we finished the Minerva's Den DLC. So, today, I'm just going to talk about some things regarding Bioshock 2. Starting with multiplayer. I don't know what's going to happen, but let's find out. Because the thing is, I won't actually be able to do a... Oh! Okay, so what's going to happen? Because obviously, for one, it's been 10 plus years since this... It's been at least 10 years, so therefore, the multiplayer... Oh. Uh-oh, don't look at that, people. Hold on. I'll try blurring that out or something.
I dare you to put your boot on my back!
Oh, okay, so these characters you could play as in Bioshock 2. Jacob Norris.
Learn to fight for yourselves!
Jacob is a stand-up guy, a gifted welder. His skills were used to build Rapture's physical foundations, responding to dangerous and deteriorating conditions in Rapture work sites. Jacob has become a vehement supporter of labor reform and is regarded as a hero by his peers. Barbara Johnson. Barbara is a dutiful housewife and mother. She arrived in Rapture hoping that the unique setting of life under the sea would dispel the dissatisfaction that plagued her topside. And at first it did, but as the novelty wore off, she was once again beset by the nagging sense that there must be something more. Buck Rowley. Buck made his money in Bourbon. He is a self-made businessman with boundless ambition. He is known as a ruthless negotiator. Buck came to Rapture fed up with the government interference caused in his industry topside, and has been an eager competitor in Rapture's unregulated markets. Danny Wilkins. Danny is naturally gifted athlete who does not recall ever losing. Though he has sometimes been on a losing team, the loss has never been Danny's fault. Any losses were always due to his teammates, and in every case, Danny was otherwise occupied breaking various records of his own. Whoa!
Your mind is consumed by fear.
Sherish is a mentalist whose performance have mystified audiences around the world. He arrived in Rapture, joins the performance troop at Fort Frolic, and proceeded to amaze the city's denizens with a plasmid-enhanced show featuring acts of mind control and clairvoyance. Naledi Atkins. Naledi Atkins is a fearless pilot with a love for the mechanical and kinetic. Her appetite for adventure is the deciding factor for what contracts she will accept as a submersibles pilot. She lives her life always at least one step ahead of boredom and does not deal in regret. Oscar Calaraka. Oscar is both a lover and a fighter. As a younger man, his business savvy, dedicated work ethic, and discriminating taste earned him a fortune in cosmetics. Now his concerns are more sensual in nature, and his tastefully extravagant A-list parties make him a permanent fixture in Rapture's gossip pages. And Louis McGrath.
I'll show you what I was in for.
Louis likes to hurt people, and he's good at it. But causing pain isn't the only criminal activity he excels at. He is also a smuggler, which is how he got into Rapture. Before being apprehended and incarcerated and then temporarily brig, Louis worked the fisheries as a docker. That means this guy worked for Fontaine. I'm just going to be Jacob. Alright, let's see here. What's the prologue? Was this Delta? No, this isn't Delta. This is something else.
And now for a special message from Andrew Ryan.
Good evening, my friends. I hope you are enjoying your New Year's Eve celebration. It has been a year of trials for us all. Tonight, I wish to remind each of you that Rapture is your city. It was your strength of will that brought you here, and with that strength, you shall rebuild. And so, Andrew Ryan offers you a toast. To Rapture, 1959. May it be our finest year.
Go to the recording machine to hear a company message. Wait, this guy already has weapons.
Congratulations! You've been approved to join the Sinclair Solutions team in our all-new Consumer Rewards program. We'd like to invite you to test our home defense products in the field and tell us how you feel. With your continued effort, you'll soon earn access to the exclusive Bronze Club benefits. So get out there and start earning those rewards.
This is an emergency message from Ryan Industries. There has been an incident at the Kashmir restaurant. Please return to the safety of your homes until further notice. Thank you.
I've never done multiplayer. Mostly because, as far as I know, I can't do multiplayer. If only because, you know, the servers have long been shut down. But I can at least do this prologue. This guy's got a nice home. The Rapture Metro. Isn't this where Jack shows up at the beginning? Huh? An auto diary. Oh, we can't listen to it though. So we can customize here at the wardrobe. Go with the classic wrench. And go to the bathysphere to start your first match. Oh, this guy. That is actually, yeah, that's one of my friends on the list. Oh, wait, no. We don't need to see him. No. He used to play the multiplayer, I guess. Yeah, this is like from the first game. I recognize the assets here. is this gonna be an online match, or is it gonna be survival, the free-for-all? Well, let's do a free-for-all. Let's see if it might actually find me something. Veto map, manage invites, statistics, trials, customization. Yeah, we're not gonna find anyone. Waiting for 5 players to join. Yeah. I don't think we could do a private match, but the different maps here: Arcadia, the Farmer's Market, Fort Frolic, Hephaestus Core, Home for the Poor, Fontaine's Home, Kashmir Restaurant, Medical Pavilion, Mercury Suits, Neptune's Bounty, Point Prometheus, Fontaine Fisheries, Popper's Drop, Smuggler's Hideout, Fighting McDonald's, Dionysus Park, Siren Alley, and yeah. So yeah, this is basically the... Oh, okay. So we can always replay the prologue if we want. Okay, so the multiplayer has a small story of its own, really. Since it is the year of 1959, this is when the Civil War and Rapture breaks out between the various, Fontaine's group / Atlas's group and Ryan's security forces and his own personal splicer army. Why did I replay this prologue?
Good evening, my friends. I hope you are enjoying your New Year's Eve celebration. It has been a year of trials for us all. Tonight, I wish to remind each of you that Rapture is your city. It was your strength of will that brought you here, and with that strength, you shall rebuild. And so, Andrew Ryan offers you a toast. To Rapture, 1959.
Okay, yay. Yay, and then Rapture goes to hell, okay. So, yeah, the multiplayer, I really have no information on that much of it, mostly because, again, continue to apartment player, single player game. Okay, that exits multiplayer. Is there deal? Okay, that also... let's browse and see what we might find. Just a mix of that and TV tropes to get some of my information. Whoa. Okay, so yeah, there are add-ons. So we can get Millie Blanche de Grace, the internationally acclaimed actress, or Zigo de Acosta, one of Rapture's great sailors. This is a melee weapon add-on, the Kill Them Kindly, which is a golf club. Minerva's Den, the Protector Trials, the Rapture Metro. As one of our valued Sinclair Solutions testers, we especially invite you to enjoy the pleasure of rebirth, but only if you are truly dedicated and fully ranked up. However, all testers are eligible for 6 new maps. Expand your Bioshock 2 multiplayer experience with a rank increase to 50 with rank 2 new playable So this is everything as well. So wow. That's a lot of add-ons. No. Okay, people. Oh, God. Thought I got snot on that. Okay, after that, I decided to just put it on here. That way the game won't do its demo mode thing and all that stuff. So, there are a lot of content. There is a lot of content in this game that either was meant to be added or didn't make it into the end. Wait, what? Hold on a sec. That's not me. Hold on, I'm on Facebook, and apparently my old coworker tagged me in a video, but that is not me. I don't know why I'm tagged in here. That is not me. That doesn't even look like me. Anyway, as I get to the Bioshock wiki, well, actually, I'll start with TV tropes, because TV tropes tend to give me some good, reliable source with, with the whole thing on the ordeal regarding, unused content in games. First, let me get to Bioshock. Because, like I said, there's a lot of unused content in this game. Okay, here we are, Bioshock 2, and trivia. So let's find... here we are. So, one of the original ideas was that Soviet soldiers would have invaded Raptures, and part of their AI coding for them ended up being used for splicers. Now, here's the main thing. Here's one thing here. Dionysus Park was originally conceived as being as a perfect intact area that wasn't leaking and falling apart like the rest of Rapture. Delta was originally supposed to get there by an underwater section through Fort Frolic. The way it was because as you're going through there, you would have recognized this part of Fort Frolic. They even did say, one of the art designers even said that it was meant to be part of an extensions. The area would have been home to wild parties hosted by the famous filmmaker Ava Marie Tate. Stanley, who was so delusional from splicing that he believed he was still the moral guardian, intrepid reporter he once was, and was also implied to be Grace's husband, he got Delta to take getting Tate's parties on film, and Delta would have taken an atom-derived drug called Eden, which would cause hallucinations, such as images from his past, large marionettes, and Sander Cohen as a 20-foot tall bunny that would have been a boss fight of some kind. However, the footage would have shown that Stanley was so spliced up himself, and he had sold Eleanor to become a little sister, which would cause him to go insane and attempt to erase Delta. So, honestly, I would have still liked the idea of a giant version of Sander Cohen reappearing in some way or form, but it is what it is. Another one would have been the Rumbler, and I could show images of it as well. Now, the Rumbler, back in Bioshock 1, when I did the Museum of Concepts, the Rumbler was a version of a Big Daddy from the game that made it into some screenshots. And there's even still, coding for it. It was known as Slow Pro Fum, which means slow-moving projectile shooting, fucked up melee, or just fed up melee. The Slow Pro had a single cannon, and he had to kneel down to shoot, and he used a large hook for heavy damaging melee attacks. However, Slow Pro ended up being cut out from development, but it was reworked. It was reworked into the Rumbler, though. And as I stated, as you saw, if you see my Museum of Concepts, you can see the Rumbler model that would be reused in Bioshock 2. Now, a story-related one is that there was only going to be one big sister who would have been the real villain of the game. One of Jack's rescued little sisters couldn't adjust to life on the surface and returned to Rapture and recreated her childhood by kidnapping the little girls to make new little sisters out of. But in the end, though, they changed a version of this story in which, with Sophia Lamb still being the villain, there was still a single sister, big sister, as her personal, personal, you know what I'm saying. You would have fought this big sister regularly, in which you would have to either survive or damage her enough to get her to back off. They knew that they scrapped this because they know that the big sister escaping would not exactly it just wouldn't exactly felt as exciting. Hold on. And at the same time, the feeling that the big sister was your little sister, Eleanor, was not a very good twist. They partially kept the twist, though, with one of the big sisters being the protagonist's little sister, only she was Delta's little sister, not Jack's. Delta's armor used to be based off of Delta's armor was going to be based off of old World War II bombers and would have been more top-heavy and bulkier, as I could show with images. Delta, though, was going to be a lot more durable other than Big Daddy's. The idea was that individual splicers would be like flies, but they would become a threat in swarms. But in the final game, though, Delta's just as vulnerable, if not more so. There was an idea for pneumotubes that you can sell and buy supplies from non-splicered survivors who barricaded themselves inside. But the idea was cut with the survivors. The model of the survivors was reused for the splicer with the shaved head that Delta ended up killing in the beginning of the prologue. Now, one of the things... Now, one of the things that I know they acknowledged in the first game was little brothers. Little brothers were meant to also be gatherers, but they were deemed too aggressive to be used for gathering. They would have appeared in Inner Persephone. A therapy room in Inner Persephone, though, was repurposed as the pediatric ward for little sisters. Another one would have been is that for a concept pitch for the reimage Vita chambers, mentions an alternative generation of Big Daddies and Big Mamas, as there could have been possibly female Big Mamas, really. They never appear in the franchise, except for the multiplayer characters you play as. Is there anything else that I need to find? Oh, I have an idea. Hold on. As I keep talking, for Minerva's Den, there was a few little Easter egg things I wanted to mention. With the Spitfire Easter egg, the thing with that one is that according to one of the designers, he stated that once Porter got out and got cured, he funded his own. He got his own computer company, and they ended up becoming a game company. But that is also because this is a reference to Onward, not the movie Onward by Pixar, but oh boy, where is it? Now I have to go to the Bioshock 2 page for that. There is a reference to it, if I can find it. It's gonna take a while. I wish I should have done this better. Okay, here we are. Let's see. Whoops. Where are you? Big Sisters. Tenenbaum. There's so much to look. Okay, get this thing out of the way so I can see better. Okay. I might as well just do this to make it easier to navigate. I would do this on my own laptop, but unfortunately getting on the internet actually screws up with the it screws around with the recording and it causes it to lag badly. So that's why I can't do that. Okay. That's very detailed. All right. Minerva's Den. Gallery. Here it is. Gone Home. Gone Home, which is a 2013 game by Fulbright Company, which is composed of former 2K Marin developers, such as the lead designer of Minerva's Den, Steve Gaynor, referenced Charles Porter in the form of a Super Nintendo game cartridge, Super Spitfire, licensed by CMP Interactive. Basically, that was the idea of that. If I can... Oh, I'm going to have to type it in myself, don't I? Oh, why do you have to make me do it myself? There we go. Spitfire. Spitfire, Minerva's Den. The Spitfire was a British single-seat fighter, so yeah. And the Jap Zeros are operated by long-range fighter craft in the service of the Japanese Naval Air Service. Okay, here we are. Here's the developers commenting about Steve Gaynor, Carla Zimnogia, and Jonaman Nordhagen. They worked on Minerva's Den, and Gaynor linked the two games together. As he quoted here, in Minerva's Den, there's the world's first video game, in theory, because there's a video game down there and it was from the 50s or whatever. It's called Spitfire. I don't know if you found it when you played it, but it's like a vector's graphics, like an asteroids kind of thing. It's playable. The idea being that it was a super simple representation of a fighter plane in World War II shooting down enemy Zeros. In Gone Home, we wanted to make a Super Nintendo cartridges that we put in the game, so one of them is called Super Spitfire, and the publisher is CMP Interactive, which stands for Charles Milton Porter, because he survived and made it back to the surface. As for how Super Spitfire could have ended up coming to fruition, Gaynor theorizes that the art is very Japanese style art, so what I think happened is that Porter did start a computer company when he got back to the surface, and it's probably been 50 years or something, so probably the company that he started licensed the IP for that game to a Japanese company, which then made a Super Nintendo version of it. That was a lot to talk about. So yeah, there's that. And another thing, which is a nice reference really to one of 2K's previous games, to System Shock, was that the thinker and the whole pitch of figuring out the whole identity thing with Porter being Sigma and the thinker emulating Porter is based exactly as Shodan from System Shock 2, where Shodan used the persona of Dr. Janice Politio to guide the player throughout the game. And at the same time, back in Bioshock 1, Atlas did the same thing, pretending to be someone, but really, yeah. The Thinker itself is just pretty similar to Shodan in many ways, except the Thinker is a lot more benevolent compared to Shodan. Never played System Shock 2 or System Shock in general, but I did acknowledge how I have acknowledged that basically, I'm trying to think of my words here. I acknowledge that Bioshock 1 at least is, he is at least, Bioshock is a spiritual successor to System Shock. Yeah, here it is. Here's what I was looking for. Once Porter returned it to the surface, he would found a computer company called CMP Interactive, which would develop the game Spitfire. So in the end, Porter became a video game developer for computers. How ironic, ain't it? There's a lot of other stuff I can go on about. I just don't know if I can put up with it. Because the editing part is not going to be fun. Let's see. Minerva's Den. Then remove characters. And there's also removed characters. I have an idea. How to get to unused content faster. Okay, that's mentioned. Remove characters. Let's just put that in. Okay. Okay. References. Blah, blah, blah. Right here, I think. Oh, it's not easy to navigate on mobile form. Okay, I have an idea. Are you kidding me? Come on, phone. Unused content. Bioshock 2. Because I want to at least share all of the ones I can put in. Let's see what we got. Protect Trials. Here it is. Add! Remove content from Bioshock 2. Here we are. Let's see. Oh, so one idea that they did is that in one of the unused intros for the game, Lamb was going to guide Delta over the radio, similar to Atlas from Bioshock 1. Basically, Sophia would have instructed Delta as he would have navigated Eleanor through the city, and once Delta reached Sophia at a safe point, she would betray him and kill him, just like in the opening. Sinclair went through a few different things as well. There's a model and audio of Sinclair tied up in a chair in Persephone, which would have then led up to him becoming Subject Omega. Tenenbaum was meant to have a bigger role in the game. She was meant to give rewards to you, but when the game and the story was finalized, they decided that this was not important for her, and her part was minimized. But there are, however, voice clips when you have saved and or harvest little sisters. Let's see as I keep looking around. Okay, yeah, I already read this one. Okay, and then there's minor characters that... here we are. Oh. Let's look at the removed characters, minor characters. Ava Tate was one of them. She was an actress of sorts for, She was an actress of sorts. She does have her own profile here, and I did briefly come upon it. Ava Tate was from Quebec, Canada. She is an actress and a colleague of Sander Cohen and a movie producer and a celebrity of Rapture. She specialized in producing propaganda films to change the public opinion and keep Rapture's inhabitants distracted from the political problems in the city. There's still some references to her in the movie, or in the game, but in the end she was removed. Even though she was meant to play a role in the game. And that role was, as I scroll back up to her... Oh, and there's also for Minerva's Den, so I got to get to that. I'm getting there. Locations. Come on. Okay, is this it? No, I got to keep going. There's a lot of content in this. I just wish I could do it on my computer instead of my phone. So, Tate was responsible for having both Delta and Lamb erased from the public records. And during the events of Bioshock 2, she and her network of informants were located in Dionysus Park. The goal of it was to gather video evidence with the camera of her illicit activities, since Stanley Poole wanted to use the footage to expose and ruin her reputation. Cindy Meltzer, the daughter of Mark that we've encountered, was meant to be different. Even though we rescued a little sister that is implied to be Cindy, really, she was supposed to have been blonde-haired instead of brunette. It was never implemented, though, because of development time. Jordan Thomas, a developer of the game, was even hoping to have an achievement trophy if you saved her, which will bring up Mark Meltzer, which I will talk about in a bit. And Sander Cohen was supposed to reappear as the 20-foot Freudian monster rabbit in the hallucination of the original Dionysus Park Fort Frolic story. And there are removed auto diaries from Minerva's Den that he was also a patient of Sophia Lamb, which I do not like the sound of. Scrolling down, multiplayer, which I'm not going to talk about. Splice waiters. Waiters. Waiters were a type of splicer from the previous game. They were the very religious sounding ones. Their textures are still in the game. Although the texture is the same from the first one. A newly created one was for this game and not reused. But in the end, though, waiters were removed and most of the religious aspects of them were put on a different splicer. The Brute and Ducky splicers, that there was an idea to combine the two together. It basically shows a Brute splicer wearing the Ducky outfits, security and orderly uniforms. But it didn't work out. Now, Aqua splicers, and yeah, I briefly talked about this. They are known as the Crawlers, from what it says here. So, according to the... Oh, give me a second, people. I'll be right back. All right, people, I am back. So let me go back to what I was talking about before I had to take a moment to stop there. So, let me see. The aqua splicers that I was getting to. So, there was meant to be a dedicated splicer that could breathe underwater, named the aqua splicer. There were two forms to him. When you're inside Rapture, it would be more upright and have a more humanoid look to it. When it would go out in the water, what looked like its arms when it was on land became its legs, more or less, and its fins, and that would propel it. These splicers would have special air sacs with leeches attached. The final model for these splicers, though, would utilize the same silhouette as the crawler, that they would have been modified versions of the crawler model. But in the final game, though, they were removed. And that the only enemies that can survive out in sea are big sisters and big daddies. I think there is even like an in-game image of them or a potential in-game image. Now, there would have been jesters. These tall, thin individuals dressed up in jester outfits. They were either probably entertainers during the flashback in the prologue, or if they were meant to be splicers of some type. There are two jester two concepts of the jesters that either are unnatural or mutated. They may have been spider splicers or just an idea for splicers, similar to Fort Frolic, where all the splicers wore party outfits and butterfly masks. The survivors, which I talked about. Let's see. There was a big daddy known as the Demo Daddy. He was a big daddy that I believe was a concept of what Delta would have been until they finalized him. He made it as far as to getting an untextured model, but that was it really. Little brothers, as I briefly brought up about. But yeah, little brothers didn't make it either. Gene tonics and other things that were removed. Eve auto hack, piercing damage over time. Staggering blow, gather harvest bonus. Handyman 2, freezing drill 2, medical expert 2. Those are all gene tonics that were either removed or changed in the final game. Pneumo trading, and there is a UI screen for it. But again, it never made it in. There was a mechanic on which you could scare off splicers by just revving your drill. It was seen in the Hunting the Big Sister trailer, but in the end, it was removed. And yes, the whole Eden part of Dionysus Park, I wonder if I can find the 10-foot tall bunny thing. Because models of the mask and marionettes made it into the game. Storyboard and concept for the puppets. I don't know if the puppets were meant to be enemies or not. There were supposed to be ghosts and genetic memories, much like in the previous game. According to creative director Jordan Thomas in an interview about it, there were a number of playable flashbacks which had a prequel-like flavor, but were much more subjective, like memories that you were uncovering. But they were terrible. What Rapture was like in its heyday appeals on paper, but it meant you really couldn't play the game. Players slept walk through each scene, which was pretty, but not particularly convincing. Again, underwater combat, okay, multiplayer stuff. A lot of other things. One thing was that Dionysus Park and Siren Alley were meant to be combined into one large level. But in the end, though, there were too many important elements for just to put for one level, so they were split up into Pauper's Drop and Siren Alley. Let's see. Fontaine Futuristics. Persephone, Inner Persephone. The multiplayer levels, which again. What about Minerva's Den, though? The original pitch here was going to be a retelling of System Shock 2. Jordan Thomas and Zach McClellan were not fans of the idea, and Steve Gaynor, who was the presenter of the pitch, decided to give Sigma the identity of Porter. But it was still conceptually based on System Shock 2, though. Let's see. Advertisements, auto. There's a lot of unused auto diaries. I don't want to get about on it. It'll be just too much to talk about regarding that. And there's unused radio messages for. Yeah, the unused radio messages. So, I did mention how in the base Bioshock 2 story, how the vending machines don't have their voice clips. This goes for the radio messages. However, we at least heard some of the radio messages in Minerva's Den. So, yeah, it's just weird that they weren't used. There's still a few unused radio messages for Minerva's Den. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to talk about regarding that. Now, last but not least, I want to bring up something with Mark Meltzer. Something I wanted to acknowledge ever since I said this guy is important, and since we killed him as a rumbler in Fontaine Futuristics. If I can get to his... If I can find his... No. If I can find... Okay. Mark Meltzer. Okay. So, there was a viral game, an AR game of sorts, that was part of the marketing campaign for Bioshock 2. It was called Something in the Sea. The story in the game being that it would detail the investigation and relating writings of Mark Meltzer, who learned of young girls that were being kidnapped along the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. And later, he would see that his own daughter was kidnapped and would somehow find his way into Rapture. So, the way that it worked was that it was divided up into 3 phases of Mark's investigation, each with a separate website page on where clues would appear regularly, which each update being presented as days. In addition to the 3rd phase part, another viral campaign was launched, which fans who sent letters to Mark's P.O. box being invited to solve clues and participate in real-world events. The website, though, was shut down back in 2012, but all the content and updates were preserved at the Rapture Archive Center fan site. It was that year on July 15th. I really can't explain it that well, but Phase 1 being There's Something in the Sea began on March 4th of 2009. It starts as a simple map of the world, and over time was filled with newspaper clippings, notes, and other documents by someone who is tracking the abductions and disappearances of young girls along the Atlantic coast from February to September 1967. This researcher was revealed to be Mark Meltzer during the middle of the phase. Phase 2 would be The Office. It began on May 23rd of 2009 and continues where Phase 1 left off. This phase takes place in his office in Montauk, Long Island, New York, and chronicles his investigation to find his kidnapped daughter Cindy through 1968. And then Phase 3, The Boat. The third and final phase began on November 5th of 2009, and it picks off where Phase 2 left off. On November of 1968, Mark Meltzer sets off on a boat from Baltimore, Maryland, to continue the search for his daughter overseas. And in parallel to the final phase, the Orrin Oscar Ludwig manhunt, whom Mark Meltzer was following using a trail of clues, who escaped from the Tulleville Hospital in order to defeat the Red Pawn in his race to rapture secrets. It's really hard to explain. In the end, though, Mark was important because once you got to the end of Phase 3, as I loaded up here to see for myself, Day 3, Day 3. Day 4, Day 5, Day 6. I'm trying to find Day 15. Day 16. Day 17. December. Day 18. Day 19. Day 20. I want to get to the part where he finds Rapture at least. $30, $31, $32, January. February. Phantom Lighthouse, so we're getting there. Day 52. Conclusion. It's by then that he finds... Yeah, okay. Basically, though, it ends on which... Okay, alright, yeah. Basically, though, the game was so popular that, and when fans wanted to know if Mark ever would get Cindy or not, that's when they decided to implement him into Bioshock's 2 story alongside Delta, really. And speaking of with Delta, there was a thing with Minerva's Den, which goes with the unused radio messages, where the Thinker would announce how a lot of the events of what Delta doing would happen along almost the same time with Minerva's Den. However, this was most likely removed because of timing and probably story reasons, because it would have been hard to keep up with stuff like that. But I'm going to end it there, though. I've talked enough. I've went on and rambled enough and more or less confused you guys with all of that, really. But I hope you liked Bioshock 2. It's a wonderful game. I don't understand why people... I don't understand why people don't seem to give it enough recognition as they do with the first game. And the Minerva's Den DLC is wonderful as well. It is a nice homage to System Shock 2 to anyone who's played it, with the exception of me. So, yeah, that will do for this episode of Bioshock 2. And the next game, well, you'll see. So that is it. And I will see you guys in the next game. Or should I say my next Let's Play. See you guys later.